was good for tennis, not only for England, but good for the whole world. And it also brought a great amount of inspiration to all of the youngsters in Britain. You know, it was been a lot of years since the great Fred Perry, who I knew well, won Wimbledon. However, this is going to be a very, very interesting men's draw as well as the ladies. Why? Mr. Nadal is playing tennis. And whenever he's in the draw, he can beat anybody. And what's interesting is there could be a possible matchup in the quarters of Federer, who's now seeded number 7, against Nadal, who's moved into the number 2 position.
You make a great point about Rafa Nadal. In your book, Nick, is he back to his best, do you feel?
Well, I believe the last couple of tournaments, I haven't seen him play better. You know, I was listening to Pat McEnroe, a good friend of mine who heads up the program for the USTA. He is playing unbelievable. He sort of brought a new dimension to his game. He can move back 8 to 10 feet, or he comes forward and hits the ball very early. He's improved his serve, and he's a lefty. He's very dangerous. He's full of confidence. Watch out.
Novak Djokovic, he won in 2011. Federer as well is a 5-time champion. How do you assess both their chances? Kind of sum that up for me.
Well, first of all, I believe Djokovic, I can't use the word, is rather angry. You know, he's been popped off a couple of times the last a few tournaments. He has a game that is well constructed, not too much of a weakness in any part of his game. You know, usually a player has 1 or 2 big weapons, and then they may have a weakness. Djokovic is in great shape.
Are we at the position, are we at the stage in his career where we kind of overlook Roger Federer's chances? He's a 5-time champion. How do you assess his chances there? Well,
first of all, Roger Federer is great for the game. He's fantastic on court. He's fantastic off court. He's well respected. He respects all of the opponents that he plays. Right now, I see the one-handed backhands a little bit behind the two-handed backhands. You know, when you get a Nadal hitting those heavy cross-court lefties and then serving out wide, it is difficult. Right now, Roger's in a very vulnerable state. However, I believe that the U.S. Open and the Australian Open is going to tell the story. Paul Annacone, a former student of mine, is now the coach of Federer. He was terrible from the baseline. He had a continental grip, and he came in all the time and played pretty darn good tennis. I believe right now Roger cannot win just standing on the baseline. I believe he has to come in.
What do you mean when you say vulnerable? He's in a vulnerable position.
Well, he's in a vulnerable position because he's moved down to number 7 now. And you remember, Pete Sampras went through a tough period. Fortunately for Pete, he won a big one before he left the tour. My Andre Agassi, remember, went from number 1 to 142 in the world, and he left on a pretty good note. What we don't want to remember is Roger Federer leaving on a low note. He's been fantastic. He moves beautifully. He does everything with ease. This is a big tournament for Roger Federer.